Okay, so I've added 2 colors. I don't want to add all the colors because I want it still to have a contrast. So I added the yellow ochre and the raw umber for little dots here to cover and make a background. For the table here, I am just going to take the brown and I'm going to outline. I'm going to take this line here and outline it. This is where the horizon line was. And then I'm just going to pull some lines across. Again, I don't want to get too big on the areas with the flat wash for the beginners. I don't want them to get tired because in the beginning, when you have a large area and you're not familiar with the flat wash, it can be hard to pull the color across. So I'm just very gently going in between so it looks like a wood table. So for this, doesn't have to be perfect. And then you could add some water and just move that wash around with some water, just so it fills in any of the white spaces. Oops, I got some on the cone there. I'm gonna paint this side. And you could still tell them to do it as a flat wash, left to right, top to bottom. But they have to do this quickly or else the color will dry and they're not gonna get that fill that you're looking for. All right, so I'm just gonna clean up this edge, clean up that edge, get a little bit of my paper towel. And now it's out of the cone. And then now you have your background with the wall and the table. So as you could see with that second layer, look how dark it made the cherry. I was gonna have you do a dark tone on these sides as if the light's coming here. So I'm just gonna take my red and I'm gonna go over only the left side here. And then I'm gonna soften it with my water and my brush so it gradually gets darker. Then I'm gonna take my brown and I'm gonna create a dark tone on this side. And then I'm going to take my water and my brush and soften so it gradually gets darker. Then I'm going to do the same with my cone. Now look, remember we only used a little bead of paint here. Look how small. So in watercolor you do not, that's why they give you such small tubes. You do not need a lot of paint. So literally give everyone a speck. So very little paint is needed because it's very pigmented, this particular watercolor. So a little goes a long way. So this palette here will last you all of your classes. So that's all 6 weeks of classes with 25 people each. Okay, so now I'm back over here and I'm gradually softening it, taking the water. This is called a softening edge. So now it's getting from lighter to darker. This wasn't dry, so do you see what's happening here? This is bleeding into my table color. But normally you want this dry, so a paper towel is definitely a good tool to have. If you dare, for the last part, you can take a little bit of pigment. Like this has no water. This is just the watercolor. And you could dip it in this little bead here that has no water added. And you can go over these lines so you don't see a pencil mark. You just see the darker lines made by the watercolor pigment. Now if you have young students, you may want to skip this part. And the same for the cherry. I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to go right to the pigment, not to the pigment with water. I'm going to paint over that little line there. And then I'm going to go over my stem. So I added a little bit of green, just a pinch. I didn't even need that much, but no paint, just pigment. And I'm going to paint on top of the stem here, just very gently. Of course, airlines are going to be thicker, but let them know if you hold the paintbrush very lightly, you can get a very light line. Okay, and then you're done. You could also create a little shadow here, again, depending on the age group or the skill level. So if the light is coming from here, the shadow is going to go this way. So I'm just going to paint a little triangle here. I'm going to take some water